So I've had a number of questions from students about how to store files in Capture One. I've had a question about moving catalogs and how does Capture One know where the files are. So today I actually wanted to talk a little about the library tool panel and also how Capture One stores files. So there are three options within Capture One for storing files when you import. And so if you're new to Capture One, if you've never done any kind of an archive program, or if you're coming from Lightroom, if you've never done an archive program, you don't really know what the options are probably at all. CF card with some photos on it, just plugged it in. If you're coming from Lightroom, you're used to a system that only has one way of doing it, and it's a bad way, frankly. But we're going to start there. So if I go to import photos, and I'm going to import from D8, like on D810, and I'm not going to import all these photos. I'm just going to import like 10 images right there. The important thing when you import in Capture One is there's the source, D810, right, exclude duplicates, so far so good. Import to. Now here's where things get interesting. In Capture One, you have a number of options. So you have current location, leave the photos where they are. In Lightroom, they call it add. You have inside catalog, which is special and unique to Capture One. We'll talk about that last because it's the most flexible and also the least similar to what you're probably used to. These two options right here, Lightroom Pictures, are actually just things I've picked before when showing people how they might work with the Lightroom catalog or integrate anything like that. So that's basically a recent directories list. So that might be different for you. It might not be there at all. And then you have choose folder. So the three real options are current location, inside catalog, or choose folder. So let's start with choose folder. Okay, so let's say you've got your card plugged in, and you need to tell it where to put it. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to do a fairly typical thing. I'm going to go to my pictures folder, and I'm going to create a new catalog, a thing called Capture One raw files. Okay. So now this lives underneath my pictures folder. Okay. Set import folder. Okay. So now, if I say import right now, it's just going to put these directly into that folder, and that's not really what we want. This subfolder right here is really where things get super interesting and powerful. You can simulate exactly what Lightroom does if you want. I personally don't think that's a very good way of storing images, but let me show you how to do it. So you could just type something in here, right? You could manually enter a directory right there. In Capture One, anytime you see this little ... button right here, it brings up the ability to build a format or a naming scheme from tokens. And tokens are basically metadata that's inside your images or your catalog. There are some presets. You can save presets for these. I'm going to build one from scratch. Excuse me, there's a cold going around. You may hear my wife coughing in the back also. Yeah, we're lovely with the plague. So you have all this metadata available. And what metadata is available kind of depends on where you are. We're importing, so we don't necessarily have everything we could have available. But there are a couple options here that are interesting. Current date, current day of month, whatever. So those are all today. There's also image date. And they have a couple canned formats there, but they also have all the components of image date. So what I'm going to do is do image, day of month, day of week, image folder, image month, image year. And then when it's up here, I'm going to click on this and do 4-digit year. And then I'm going to put a dash. And then I'm going to do image month. And then I'm going to put a dash. And then I'm going to put image day of month. And it's there, it just got big, okay? So what I've now done is I've told it to store this underneath the pictures, Capture One, raw files, / the date. Not quite what Lightroom does. So let's go back one step further. I'm going to put another image year here. Image year. It always puts the new ones at the end, so I'm just going to drag this to the beginning. I'm going to change it to a 4-digit year. Oops, put a cursor here and put a / and that tells it directory level. Okay, so you can build trees. So what I've got here is image year. So 2019 / 2019 02 23 or whatever day I shot these photos on. Okay, and you can see that right here. if you pick a photo, let's see if I can find one that wasn't on the 28th. There it is, 3-1. So whatever photo you have selected, even if you have a range selected, it picks the first one. It's going to pick that as the example. Okay. So if I import this, it tells you where it's going to put it. Roughly for one file, they're different dates, so it's going to split them up by date. So I'm going to go ahead and import 45 images really quickly here. I'm ignoring the rest of the import dialog. We're not talking about that right now. Lots of other options here for other stuff, but this is just where we're going to store it. Okay. Now it's importing these and building previews and all that, but actually we're going to wait a second because it won't show us where they're stored, and I'll show you that in just a second. So if I go to, it's going to keep jumping back to the recent import while it's in the import. And it should be done. Done. Okay, so we have 45 images. So let's look at the library tool panel. In the library tool panel, you've got 3 main areas. I'm just going to go ahead and collapse them all. Catalog collections, user collections, and folders. Now, these are 3 different views on the same images. Okay, so an image is not in one of these 3. An image may appear in all of them. It will always appear at least once in catalog collections and at least once in the folders area. Okay. So let's look at catalog collections first. So the first one is all images, and that's exactly what it sounds like. This shows you every image the catalog knows about. So if you, like me, and use project-based catalogs, and you import just one Joshua Tree shoot, for example. So I go one trip, 3 or 4 days. Every image for that Joshua Tree shoot will show up here. If you do a semi-monolithic, quarterly, or yearly catalog, for example, or a monolithic, or a Lightroom catalog grows forever until life is really bad, all images will just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It'll be 1,000 and 10,000 and 100,000 images. Okay. Recent imports shows recent imports, and these are automatically generated. It's basically like a film roll, right? So I imported this one. It's this card. Next card I bring in, it shows up as another one. They used to only show like 5 or 6. Now they show like 10. But these go away the more imports you do. So if you have a long-lived catalog, you're doing semi-monolithic, and you're importing over and over again, do not rely on these. So if you need to keep track of which card things came off of, you're going to create user collections, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. Recent captures is the same thing as recent imports, except for tethered shooting. And trash is your trash can. If you delete stuff, it doesn't go away immediately unless you tell it delete from disk. It normally goes to the trash, and then you can delete it later on. Okay. So that's the catalog collections. So this is just a view of everything the catalog knows about, and it's split up a couple different ways. User collections is where you create collections, albums, groups of albums, projects, and they have something called smart folders or smart albums, which is basically a saved search. Okay, we're not going to worry about that right now, but you can create, Joshua trees, sunsets, rocks, or portfolio to print. You can use it however you want to use it. Okay. I don't use collections to do things like find images of certain things. That way lies madness. I use tags, keywords for that, because you can search for them. Okay. So, best laid plans of mice and men. I had that mic. Let's go with that. Need to build a mic stand so I don't have to lay it on the cord for the phone. So, let's go down and look at folders, because here's where things really get interesting. So, we imported it to a specific directory on our hard drive. Okay. So there's 2 things here right now. Before we did the import, there was only one. There was in catalog, and there's nothing next to it. This is telling us there's no images stored inside the catalog. We don't know what that means yet, but there's none there. Okay. But if I click on Mac HD, I'm going to right click on it or option click and show folder hierarchy so you can see everything. User, AFRITS, pictures, capture one raw files, 2019, 2018, 28. Okay. So there are all the files I imported that were from the 28th. This is where all these files I imported were from. If I do multiple imports, it'll build these days up just like Lightroom does, exactly the same way. And you saw there I clicked on it. If you click on it slow after it's already selected, you can do, so for example, if you do semi-monolithic or monolithic, which means a catalog that lives through multiple projects, it's a really good idea to go in and name all these days, or create a new folder called a project folder, basically. So you do like 2019 02 28 Joshua Tree trip, and then drag all the days from that trip into there, so they're grouped together. that's really kind of shoehorning a good workflow into a terrible directory structure, though. So I would not recommend that. I'd recommend doing something completely different. Okay. So now if I can do more imports, even from this Joshua Trip day, I could import more files and they might create more directories. If I import more from the 28th, it'll create a new directory because I've told it to call it 228. Okay, so if you rename things and then import again, you'll get a second directory. Okay. Okay, so that's one way of importing. So let's look at a second way of importing. And it'll be Nikon D810. I'm going to turn, well, I'll leave exclude duplicates on. It's a little slow. Actually, I'm going to turn it off just to save us time. I'm going to scroll way down. I'm going to select some more files. Okay. So there's 12 more files. In the destination, instead of doing a choose folder and picking a folder, I'm going to do inside catalog. Now, you notice the subfolder goes away, and I don't really have any other options here. What does inside catalog mean? Well, Capture One catalogs are a directory, and on a PC it looks like a directory, and inside there is a database file and like cache and originals and adjustments, I think, a couple subdirectories that you don't mess with. It's all Capture One manages it. And on Mac, it looks like a Capture One file. If you do option click or right click, show package contents, you can see the contents of it. It's just a directory. Inside catalog means it manages the directory structure inside that directory or package. Okay, so I'm just going to do this and I'll show you what I mean. So the first thing I'm going to point out is you'll notice that this count next to in catalog is now going up because we're now storing some images inside the catalog. And so here are the images. I imported part of a panorama I was shooting, so that looks it's kind of weird, right? Those are 12 images there, and there are 45 images here. So I can mix and match these two. Okay. Now, let's go actually look at where inside catalog lives. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to see, so image storage location demo is the name of this catalog. I'll do show package content. I just right-clicked or option-clicked. And I have this CO catalog DB, which is the database where Capture One stores all the adjustments and metadata and all the other junk it does, non-destructive. We have cache. There's a write lock, which is something Capture One uses to keep track of the fact that this folder is open somewhere in the world by Capture One. So if you're sharing it on a network drive, for example, two computers won't be able to open the same one. It'll know another computer's got it open, and you don't want it to open them at the same time. That way lies madness. Unless you have software very specially designed, and Capture One isn't that type of software. Okay? So one computer at a time can edit. That's good. There might be an adjustments here. If you've done local adjustments, is when that starts showing up. It's where it stores basically the JPEGs that are the mask that you draw. But what we're looking at here is this originals directory. 2019, 03, 06. It's the day we imported it. And there are the 12 files, and this 45 directory is empty. It creates a new folder every so often. And again, it doesn't matter. I'm not showing you this because you need to mess with it. I'm showing this because, hey, here are all your raw files. So if Capture One decides not to start one day, phase one goes out of business, whatever, you don't want to Capture One, you can get your raw files. It's trivial. You can back your raw files up. It's just a directory full of raw files. Okay. The nice thing about this is, if I go up a level, I have all my catalogs. You don't want to do this with this catalog open. You want to close the catalog. But I can drag this to a network drive. I can drag it to an external drive, an SD card, a CF card, whatever I want, and open it from there. And it's self-contained. So I've got 57 images in this one. It's 610 megabytes. Okay, so they get big. So you can see up here, the actual catalog from the shoot was 24 gig. Or maybe 600 JPEG, or 600 raw files off my D810. So there's inside catalog, okay? Now, inside catalog works great if you are doing project-based catalogs, which is what I'm doing. You see each one of these. You can see I have some old catalogs here that I've never gotten around to editing or finishing. I've got hundreds of catalogs on my network server, thousands of catalogs at this point. I'll just go there and see if I can connect quickly. I've got 3 multi-terabyte drives, and I go here, and you can see this is the latest drive. It's not full yet, and I've got, a couple pages of them. And each one of these is a shoot, right? But they're self-contained, so I can, the way these got to my network drive is I edited them on my laptop when I was done, after I exported to my master archive, drag the catalog across, it's all self-contained. Okay. So now the question becomes, let's say you did one thing and you want to move to the other, right? So let's say I started with photos in a choose location type of situation, right? I just picked capture one raw file 2019 by date, like we just did here. And I decide, too much into using this catalog, that I'm going to put them inside the catalog and then split the catalog up every quarter, okay? It's really easy. You select the folder they're in. So there's 45 here. You go over to the browser, Command A or Control A, drag those and put them inside folder, in catalog, excuse me. And it says the selected image will be moved. The operation cannot be undone. Okay, so why is it saying that? They're going to be moved from the location they're currently in to storage that Capture One manages. So now we've got 57 here, which is 45 plus 12. So all the images are here. And I scroll up, you can see the images that are up here. Right, those are the images we imported the first time. And there's now no images here. And if I go back to, my desktop is very messy. And you'll notice there's now another directory 48, and it's got the rest of those raw files we just drug in. And Capture One manages that. It makes sure there's no collisions, that nothing gets overwritten. It handles all that. You don't have to worry about any of that. And if I go to my pictures folder, Capture One raw files, 2019, the folder we imported, there is nothing there because we moved them. Right? You could also go the other direction. So let's say I did inside catalog and I want to undo that. I want to put them into separate folders. Again, it's going to warn us. Go ahead and make the move. So now if I go to, I'm now in Capture One raw files, 2019, 2018, there are those files. If I go to my desktop, the photo working directory, not photo working, desktop, to the working catalogs directory, to this one, you can see it's 72 megabytes. Well, one D810 raw file is 40-ish megabytes, so we know there's no raw files in there, or not more than one. So it's pretty trivial using the library panel to shift things back and forth between inside catalog and directory structure. Okay, so now if I want to move this catalog off my computer onto an external hard drive, let's say. Well, in this situation right now, I'm storing them outside the catalog. I'm managing the storage. You can think of it as self-managed storage. And I drag this catalog somewhere. Capture One is going to lose track of this if it's on a different computer, for example. And I have to move those images to the other computer also. So let me just go ahead and shut this down. I'm going to bring up Capture One. I'm going to go to Pictures. Oops. Capture One raw files. And I'm going to drag this onto my desktop. Just change directory. Not a big deal. I'm going to go to Capture One. I'm going to reopen that same folder. Sorry, same catalog. And you notice it's got this exclamation point here next to 2019. That folder is not where it should be. If I right-click on it and say locate, and this will be familiar to Lightroom users because this is what you have to do in Lightroom. This is basically the Lightroom method. And you'll notice that now it's under desktop 2019. So you can drag a set of directories to a different computer and you'll just have to relocate them. Okay? It's not hard, but it's an extra step. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and move these all back into catalog. Okay. And I'm going to close this. I'm just going to get this is now empty because I moved the images out of here, right? Nothing inside there. I'll move that to the trash. And I'm going to go to my working catalogs directory. And I'm just going to drag this catalog onto my desktop. Not exactly as good as moving it to another computer, but it's hard to switch computers to show you. Doesn't actually matter. It could be on a network drive, whatever. So if I do get info on this, the first thing you're going to notice is that it's 2 gig. 57 raw files, that's about right. And I double click on this. And in catalog 57, knows where the images are, no problem. And it would have worked just as well if I'd moved it to a Windows computer from my Mac. If I'd put it on a network drive and opened it off a network drive, it would have worked exactly the same. So let me show you on a network drive. This one's. So here's this Bosque del Apache catalog is on a network drive. It may take it a second to open because it is slower off network drives. It's hard to beat an SSD that reads almost as fast as RAM. So while this is opening, I'm just going to say, when I put things on to network drives, I don't do it while I'm still working on them. So things I'm actively working on that aren't finished live on my laptop. Things that are finished go to my network drive. I use project-based catalogs, so my catalogs are bite-sized. It'll be one trip to Bosque, one trip to Joshua Tree, one wedding, one engagement shoot, one commercial event, one vehicle shoot, whatever it is. Every single project is its own catalog, which makes them bite-sized, which means I can get them off my laptop. So it just opened, so that took 30 seconds. Not terrible. And I'm at the bottom. All right, I can scroll through these super quick, even though it's off a network drive. Now, it's going to take it a second to pull the high-res in. There it goes. It's hard to tell because it's a shutter drag photo. But I can do everything from here. So in this catalog, you'll notice, in catalog, 1,833 photos. It's a lot of photos. And it's self-contained. So I just drug this from my laptop and over. So that's inside catalog. So there is one other storage mode I want to talk about. So you can tell I deleted this directory so it doesn't know where it is. I'm just going to remove it because I don't need it here anymore. Okay. So let's say I want to go really old school. I'm just going to do it myself. So I'm going to open pictures. So I might as well use good standard. So let's say I use a system where I store files in basically year, month, and then a description of the shoot. So now I've got that directory open. I'm not going to copy all these because that's going to be a lot. Let's just copy drag those over there. So I might copy an entire card with the cards. I might copy 3 or 4 cameras with the cards myself. And if you do this yourself, you undoubtedly run into the problem of the card number rolls over, or you've got 2 cameras that sync up somehow by accident. I have mine naming my initials AF. A lot of people just have it, like a Nikon DCS or DSC, whichever it is. So if you get 2 Nikons or 3 Nikons or 4 Nikons or 4 Canons, whatever it is, and their counters overlap at all during the shoot, you're going to run into collisions. So you got to do things like create directories per card, etc. This is not ideal, but if you've got an existing system, this works just fine. And this is how you would actually do it if you want to just take Capture One and pull in individual images from your history. Maybe you've got an existing Lightroom tree that's huge from a monolithic Lightroom catalog that was terrible. You would use this system, you would use this method I'm going to show you right now. And you can cherry pick just a couple images. You don't have to bring in the entire catalog. Just bring in the images you want to edit. You don't need to re-edit everything. Just edit that one image you want to print of. Okay. So I'm going to go to import. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how this won't work. So if I do current location right here, and I pick a couple images, and I do importing images, it says, cannot store the files in the current location. Would you like to import them inside the catalog instead? Well, why did it say that? Because Capture One knows that if you say current location on a memory card, you're probably making a mistake. Memory cards are not designed to be permanent. We format our memory cards all the time. It's a really easy way to lose images by accident because you import them in current location without realizing it, and then you format the card and they're gone. So it doesn't let you make that mistake. Okay, so I can't do that, but I can do import from source pictures, capture one raw files, 20 Joshua Tree. And I can't pick the images here, it's just the source folder. And let's say I just want to import these two images. Okay, current location. And you'll notice capture one raw files, 2019 Joshua Tree 2. And these two images are now here. But all I did was point to the ones on the hard drive. Okay, so if you have an existing tree of Lightroom and you want to just re-edit a few of the images, which is you're converting from Lightroom to capture one, don't bring in all your old stuff. That's not the way to do it. I'll put a link in the description to my article about master archives. You need a master archive so you aren't tied to any one raw editor, because that's just stupid. You're going to get locked in and it's terrible. Instead, just bring in the images you want to edit. You're going to re-edit a few images from your past. That's great. I do it occasionally. Edit them, move on with life. Okay. And just from here on forward, if you're doing Lightroom, if you're doing Capture One, you've switched over completely, or you're just using Capture One for some shoots because you like it for some stuff but not others. Great. Create project-based catalogs. Do inside catalog on the Lightroom stuff, and inside catalog on the Capture One stuff. Let Lightroom do its thing the way it does it. It's not very flexible and it's not very good. Just let it do its thing because it gets upset if you change it. And if you have an existing structure, maybe you've been doing this so long there weren't tools like Lightroom or Capture One available, and you have a system. I train a guy who's got one like that. He's got hard drives. They've got A through F on this drive, and H through C. He's got like 10 hard drives. It's divided up by location and year, and he's got his whole system. He's been doing it since before there were good tools for it. So for him, he does this current location and just brings stuff in. So hopefully that clarifies how to use the library panel and how to use the different ways Capture Ones can store your images. It's very flexible. You can move things back and forth. It's not like a decide once and then never be able to change your mind again type of thing. Okay, so there you go. Hopefully that helps.